Have you seen this? You'll need a bong. James Bong to enjoy it.
That's terrible.
Welcome to Have You Seen This?
The world's only podcast about obscure, overlooked, and misbegotten media.
All discussions will be spoiler heavy.
You have been warned.
This show would not be possible without the support of our patrons. If you would like to support our show, join us at patreon.com/haveyouseenthis. Patrons get the show a week early, and $5 supporters also get access to our Discord. Or you can tip us at our Ko-fi. Visit the link in the show notes.
Yeah, but I appreciate you actually writing a joke, because it's a little more work than the writers and directors and cast of Casino Royale from 1967 had even bothered to do.
This one is known as like a notorious failure too, but you were going to say.
Yeah, and I don't want to come off as a snob or anything, but this is no Carry On, whatever, Bond level movie.
Yeah, sorry, Tim. I meant to say, let's watch Carry On Spying, but for some reason it came out as Casino Royale.
Well, I mean, what could we say? It would be like, yeah, I continue to like the Carry On movies. This one, however.
Yeah, and like I think I actually did, it is in my notes.
Asked him about Carry On?
The single sentence. No, I wrote, I wish this were a Carry On movie.
I absolutely wish it were. Like, they could have a tenth of the budget and have a much better movie, very enjoyable all around. And I don't want to poison the well or anything, but do you ever get so bored by a movie that you kind of like dissociate?
Yeah, because I did that a few times while I was watching this. Like I pulled it up on like Tubi or wherever, and I saw the runtime and I just wilted. I was like,
yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Right. Well, especially because like the movie ends and then it goes on for another 20 minutes. And it's like, I'm dissociating during the movie, and I'm like, I wish this movie was made for, 80,000 quid with the cast of Carry On. So just bear with me for a second. So Kenneth Williams as Bond,
of course.
Barbara Windsor as the daughter of Mata-Hari, Joan Sims is Agent Mimi, Charles Hawtrey, the kind of skinny guy with the glasses, that's Jimmy Bond, that's the villain. Sid James is the Peter Sellers character. Hattie Jacques, the heavyset woman, is the detainer. Bernie Bresslaw is Le Chef. And somehow crossing time and space, Reese Shearsmith as that weird little battery-powered butler. And then you just kind of fill in the cast with like Square Jaws from Central Casting. Dancing Girls, yeah.
That whole German expressionist bit, like, kind of would fit into an Inside Number 9 episode.
Yeah, like they're just looking for an excuse.
I mean, that was one of the few moments where I perked up a little because I was like, oh, it's a take on German expressionism.
Yeah.
There's not a hell of a lot else to it, and like, much like Prince of the Sun, there were times when I was asking myself, like, are there cultural barriers to me laughing at this fucking movie? Because, for example, I don't understand why, to this movie, the absolute funniest thing in the world is a Scottish person.
I don't even have an answer for that. Maybe got to be English?
Maybe. Yeah, fuck them. I mean, the English were famously not chill to Scotland for like a number of years, so...
I know, I saw a documentary on that.
Yeah, this is just pure arrogance on their part.
I mean, a kilt, can you imagine such a thing?
Yeah, I would hate to be from a country that does that kind of shit. Anyway, time to take a big sip of coffee and open up Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. But first...
Okay.
Casino Royale. This is trash. I overcompensated a little by researching to a fault, because as soon as I was maybe 10 minutes into this movie, I was like, oh, Tim's going to hate this. This is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I fast forward through sections of this movie.
That's fair. And I feel, and like I texted you, you could cut the first 40 minutes of this movie and it wouldn't make a goddamn bit of difference.
You absolutely could. It sort of has two leads, but then it isn't sure who the lead is, because you have David Niven as Bond, but then also Peter Sellers as like sort of well, he's also Bond, but then he also just Peter Sellers just kind of like fucks up his own starring role being Peter Sellers.
Boy, did he fuck it up. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's probably the only interesting thing worth talking about in this, although, a lot of hay's been made about it already. But yeah, it has a lot of interminable, not even comedic segments. Like, I mean, I wrote down the times that someone actually says like a joke. I mean, of course, like Scott's being, naturally like the butt of jokes, I guess.
Apparently.
Yeah, there's
the first time the filmmakers saw Scrooge McDuck, they like pissed their pants laughing.
Yeah, there's like, this is peak comedy.
This is literally the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, but John Huston is in this for some goddamn reason.
He got hired to direct a bit too. He needed the money, so he said, "Sure."
I guess, yeah.
5 credited directors on this, by the way.
I get 2 paychecks this way.
Yeah,
smart man.
I mean, yeah, if a movie has more than 4 directors, 4 or more directors, it's going to be a piece of shit. And I call to memory a movie in particular that has 4 directors as a piece of shit. But don't even say its a name. I don't want to think about it or talk about it. But yeah, 5 directors on this fucking movie.
Yeah.
But funny, yeah, like there are a couple of times when someone does actually make a joke, like the wig that's left behind after John Huston's character bites it, and he's like, "I'm not sure, do we bury this or is this even part of the body?" And she says, "Well, it's more of a heirloom."
Oh.
Ah,
and that is a groaner, but it has the structure of a joke.
Yeah, it is presented as a joke.
Yes, and funny story. I think it was. Oh well, great story. If I can't even remember who was involved. The problem is there were so many fucking directors on this movie, so many cooks spoiling the broth that I tend to lose track of who is telling an anecdote about the making of Casino Royale. But at least one of the directors,
the old British
I think
guy.
it was. Good guess. It might have been Joe McGrath, who was a longtime television director and a longtime friend and punching bag for Peter Sellers. Amazingly, even though they clashed very significantly on this film, they made up later, which is astonishing to me. But more about Peter Sellers later. Mm-hmm. In Joe McGrath's words, the producer, Charles K. Feldman, had a tendency to leave the setups of the joke in the script and then remove the payoff. Like he did that with a bunch of Woody Allen's material that he wrote for the movie.
Well, it definitely shows.
Right. And I have to say, like, the moment I started laughing a little bit was when, God help me, Woody Allen showed up, because say what you want about Woody, he's capable of being funny.
Yeah, that's that's a tough position to defend, Woody Allen. But yeah, I mean, I remember, liking his movies when I was younger. So yeah, he is funny for a piece of shit person.
Yeah, and really stretching himself here playing demented, tyrannical little sexual pervert.
Write what you know, baby.
Exactly. But yeah, like he's actually sort of funny in this, even though like I said, like a lot of the jokes have basically been surgically removed for some reason. Tim described one. Though. Yeah. Tim described one that remained, which is great, but there aren't a hell of a lot of them. And like I said, there's also like a kind of a culture bound thing with a lot of these. And I'll give you an example. Do you recall the opening of the film?
Yes.
Or is that when you started dissociating?
Look, I only skipped through part of it.
Right.
And by opening,
I'm
you mean
not
the
even
opening
mad.
credits?
I fucking understand it.
Yeah. Are you talking about the opening credits or the opening scenery that can be completely excised from the film and not lose anything?
No, I mean the very, very first scene, which introduces us to Peter Sellers as quote unquote James Bond, one of many James Bonds.
Yeah.
And I think I told you this story, but I'll tell it for the audience. Many of you listening, being familiar with, movies, cinema.
I've seen way too goddamn many.
Yeah,
for this
exactly.
podcast. Yes.
You know the James Bond series of films, and the way those usually start is, after you get the
The kind of the cold
tracking.
open, like
Yeah,
the
the
mission that
gun
goes
barrel.
wrong. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
like that's copyright Saltzman Broccoli, in production, so you
Oh,
don't
okay.
see it here because they didn't have the fucking rights to that shit.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah,
you
because
get
they had the rights to Casino Royale, but not the rights to James Bond.
right, which was a whole ass thing.
Yeah,
But
so that's
we
why
can talk about that.
none of the iconic stuff.
Right. But usually, as is the tradition in a Bond film, is you get like a really spectacular opener.
Yeah.
With lots of action.
Yeah, the inciting
And,
incident, the thing that goes wrong that kicks off the whole thing.
Yeah, like I think in For Your Eyes Only, like there's like a parachute jump with like a Union Jack parachute,
Yeah.
like big
I know.
spectacle.
I've heard it explained verbatim via Alan Partridge at some point. Opening titles and everything.
I'm surprised he didn't show up in this movie somehow.
Oh, if only. Well, it was frankly beneath him.
Yeah, sad to say. So what do we get with the opening of Casino Royale 1967? I literally didn't know what I was looking at first.
Okay.
But you see Peter Sellers in some kind of structure meeting with a weird-looking man who says, "Here are my credentials," and then Peter says, "Well, everything seems to be in order," and then they leave, and then the credits start up.
Mm-hmm.
That structure... Now,
Yeah.
I've never been to Paris, so I didn't know this until I, looked it up.
Uh-huh.
That's a pissoir.
Oh, an actual pissoir.
That is a public urinal in Paris.
So,
I don't think a lot of those exist anymore. Like, they've changed, the way the public urinals look or something. But,
I mean, because when I was in Paris, I saw an old guy just pissing on the street. And not like... an unhoused sans chateau, whatever they call them.
It was Emmanuel Macron.
Yeah. Just dick out, pissing in the street. It's a beautiful city.
Yeah, that's that I feel like that's true of a lot of places in Western Europe where it's it's just like, oh, here's a public piss trough or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or like that clock in Prague where you can just piss on the base of it.
Oh, okay. As inspired that Who album, right? But
yeah,
anyway,
that was shot in Prague.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, many great music videos also shot in Prague. But I'm getting you off track. You're talking about a pissoir.
Yeah. James Bond, or a man identifying himself as James Bond, played by Peter Sellers, has just apparently been picked up by a strange man in a public urinal. This is how they open the movie.
Do you think he was going 001 in there?
I don't know. Maybe he was taking a shit. The movie certainly did.
Okay. Well, yeah, we saw the piece of shit. That was the next 2 hours and 10 minutes.
It raises so many questions. It's like, okay, we know this is a James Bond spoof or pastiche, but why are we opening the film in a urinal?
Just to get the audience acclimated. They're like, look, this is what it's going to be like.
Look, this is going to reek. Sorry.
Yeah. Although, I mean, the unfortunate thing, too, is that, that actually has, some visual comedy in it.
Yeah.
Where the guy comes around and he's like, let me present my credentials. And I assume he does. And Sellers acts accordingly. And then his character goes away for the better part of an hour.
Right. Now, to clarify, in addition to the 5 credited directors on this movie, with Val Guest receiving a second credit for quote-unquote additional sequences, this movie had 3 directors of photography, one of whom was the future director Nicholas Roeg. So, hey, there's at least some kind of cool photography in this. But more importantly, there were at least 11 writers.
There's a writer's room.
Right. So not only, I think the original script came from Ben Hecht.
Were there any joke writers? Ben Hack.
What do you need those for? What's complicated about it? It's a movie. You write it down, then they shoot the pages. It's fine.
Look, we've got all these A-list actors, and actors are just like their characters, so they can be clever and charming and all the other stuff. We don't even need to write anything.
Certainly never difficult or intransigent.
Right. But enough about Peter Sellers.
But like I was saying, original script, I believe, was by Ben Hecht, who died shortly before production started. It was passed to writers like fucking Terry Southern, fucking Billy Wilder, fucking Joseph Heller took a crack at it. Woody Allen had some contributions. Peter Sellers, of course, had some contributions when he could be bothered. Just a big mess. And remarkably, only one editor is credited, which is amazing to me. But the people
I guess they figured the
this,
damage was done at that point.
Right, and the people working on this were obliged to make some kind of narrative out of this pile of celluloid, and boy, did the crack show, because there is no real coherent story.
Yeah, and it's just exhausting when you're just presented with like set piece after set piece. You're like, okay, I guess we're here now. Like, yeah. I mean, I checked the time. I'm like, we're halfway through the movie. I'm like, I don't even know where we are in the story. Like, where's this going?
Yeah, and it's been pointed out that the only real like dramatic moment is Bond playing baccarat with Le Chiffre at the casino.
Well, they brought in their heavy for that.
Whoa! With a forklift. What was that joke your like family friend had about Marlon Brando?
Oh, oh yeah, it was whatever, Don Juan DeMarco or something, the Johnny Depp movie, and it had Marlon Brando. As whatever his like therapist or something, and Johnny Depp's character was like up on a billboard, and so Marlon Brando was, like they put him in a cherry picker to like go up and talk to him, and my friend's mom quips, "Oh, so that's how Marlon Brando's getting around these days."
Fat.
Yeah, that was great.
But yeah, and this is definitely big boy season for Orson Welles as Le Chiffre, because he is large.
Ah, the French, yes.
Yeah, his not Unicron size, but close.
It's fitting, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's his final form.
Jeez, he's the only one who looks like he's having fun for like even a brief second in the movie. But
yeah, because I mean, the man is so self-possessed. He's like, of course I'm having fun. I'm being 100% Orson Welles wherever I go. Like, who would be upset about that? Like, it's Orson's world, and we're all just living in it.
Yeah, which is why Peter Sellers had an absolute meltdown and ended up derailing production. Although, like, I think that
it's the difference between like being likable and wanting to be liked, or needing
and
desperately.
Now, to be fair, like according to production notes for the movie, Peter Sellers wasn't the only one who was occasionally holding up production. There will be notes like, "Oh, waiting for Ursula Andress," or like waiting for Orson Welles, like waiting for the talent to show up so they could actually start. But the biggest derailment on this film came from Peter Sellers, and I find Peter Sellers fascinating, even though I'm not like, I mean, I like him like on film. I'm not like, oh, his biggest fan or anything like that. But because the contrast between Sellers on screen and Sellers like behind the scenes, always like kind of a difficult man played by anxiety who became monstrous like once he got access to worldwide fame and Hollywood money.
Yeah, it went to his head.
Right. He became quite tyrannical as a movie star. And as it happened on this movie, he was the one who suggested hiring Orson Welles for the part of Le Chiffre. And Joe McGrath, who was directing at the time, he hadn't yet been
fired,
kicked off the picture.
Yeah.
Said that's a great idea. So they got Orson Welles, and the anecdotes differ on like what actually led to the breakdown between Orson Welles and Peter Sellers. But It did have to do a lot to do with Peter Sellers just being like incredibly insecure about working with Orson Welles, and it became such a problem that eventually they couldn't even appear in the same setup. There is exactly one setup in this movie where they're in the same frame.
Yeah. Yeah, otherwise, and you can even tell, like, even for someone who's only half paying attention while sorting Legos instead of watching the movie, you can tell that, like, they spent a lot of time and effort on the close-ups of Orson Welles. In fact, some of them are actually pretty fantastical shots that are, like, impressive and entertaining, which is out of place considering the rest of the movie. But then you cut back to Peter Sellers, and it's like, did, like a second unit director direct this with like whoever was at hand? Because
Probably.
because it really looks that way. There's, like you said, there's one scene of dramatic tension, and it is a baccarat game between Le Chef and Sellers' pretender James Bond. And there you see that like they're only in one shot together, but for some reason, and the reason being Orson Welles also likes to do stage magic, which
Yes.
whatever. Like he convinced them to let him do some like magic trick in the movie, and it's
they were
funny
like, yeah, that'll fill time. Go ahead.
Right? Yeah, like look, we don't have anything. They cut all the punchlines out of our script. Go for it. So yeah, like I said, like we're 90 minutes into this, like 2 hour and 10-minute movie. When they finally actually consider going around to Casino Royale, and there's a close up of or I guess a medium. I guess Orson Welles, everything's a close up of Orson Welles doing this magic trick that just like it gets more and more elaborate. Like it starts with him doing like a handkerchief thing, and then like as he's narrating it, it turns into like a string of international flags. And then he brings up both his hands, and they both have flags in them, and sparklers are going off, and like the color is shifting, and it's like it just keeps getting more and more elaborate. Which I don't know why they're doing it, but I mean, like, hey, go for it. Put something entertaining in front of me. Like, I'm not gonna get. How can I be mad about that?
Yeah.
The first entertaining thing I saw.
Thanks for coming through, Mr. Wells.
Yeah, and then it cuts back to Peter Sellers, and he just, kind of looks like a kid at like the teacher's desk or something, like looking up, and there's like the bodies of like 3 or 4 extras around him.
Yeah, and
it's weirdly incongruous.
Yeah, because when you cut back to Orson Welles, like the frame is just packed with girls.
Right? Yeah, it looks like a music video. It's that like garish and elaborate.
Funny thing, one of the women you can see in certain shots, like standing behind Orson Welles, is Jacqueline Bisset, who also appears elsewhere in the movie as Miss Goodthighs.
Mm-hmm. Is her character important at all?
No.
Okay.
None of these characters are important.
Yeah.
And this also shows like what a psychopath Peter Sellers could be. In the scene, she's holding a bottle of champagne, and quote unquote James Bond / Evelyn is supposed to shoot the top off the bottle. So Peter Sellers had a pistol with blanks in it. Well, he fired the fucking thing at Jacqueline Bisset.
If this is why Brandon Lee refused to work with Peter Sellers. And good for him.
Yeah, like, and this was the very beginning of Jacqueline Bisset's career. That could have been the beginning and the end of Jacqueline Bisset's career. Like, and she had like blood on her face from like, particles from the blank.
Yeah, because that was before blanks were that's before The Crow. That's when blanks were not completely safe. I mean,
right.
Still, like, they tell you, like, even if you're aiming at someone, don't aim at someone.
Right.
But yeah, this is, and yeah, you can tell because the shot of the, cork getting popped, like, that is just, you only see the bottle, and then it cuts back and, like, she's holding the bottle without the cork. So it's like someone fucked up their shot, and I hope that she had enough, like, self-respect to be like, I'm not doing another one of those.
Yeah.
Like, the lead shot me.
Yeah, and she's so diplomatic about it in interviews, even though Peter Sellers fucking died in 1980. Like, there's no need to protect this asshole. But,
right.
There, like, again, accounts differ on, like, why he was so careless with the prop, but like some people have speculated, like he was peeved at her for some reason and then just fucking fired a
Right.
pistol
Yeah.
blank at her,
It's
which
like
is fucked up.
I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to make you feel like you're in mortal danger.
Yeah, and it's emblematic of how Sellers tended to treat women in his life, with the exception of his mother.
Right.
Yeah, so very fucked up guy.
Yeah, I know. And then he ran that hotel by the side of the road, just him and his mother. And he just killed passing women.
Jeez, I don't even know, Tim. Like, it's not worth it to go through the plot of this movie because there isn't one. And
No,
I know say that a lot about movies we talk about, but there really isn't here.
Right, yeah, it's just like 20-minute set piece followed by 20-minute set piece. Like even the thing with like the Scotch girls, because even that, like, I'm not even sure how we got there. Was it like, did like M die or Q or someone, and so like he has to go pay respects
What the
at the
fuck is
toupee?
any of that?
Right, yeah. Because it doesn't have an
well,
ending, and that's why it goes on so long.
No.
Like we don't know what to do with this scene. Just keep adding more dancing girls, I guess.
Yeah, and like I said, you could lose all the Scotland bullshit, and it wouldn't matter. It would make the movie more tolerable. And it was at a point where I was feeling really bad for Deborah Carr.
A
Like, she's
respectable
trying,
actress. Yeah.
But I'm like, what? Why are you doing this to Deborah Carr? This feels like some kind of elaborate humiliation ritual.
Yeah. There are some shots where you do genuinely feel bad for her as an actress. Like she's trying, but like the material isn't there, and like the rest of the scene isn't supporting it. Where it's like, all right, well, I guess I'll just take a shot at it in my own small way to like try and make something out of the scene, and like more fool me. Like, I know I joke about like fast forwarding through parts, but like I'm trying to give this movie a close reading to like try and find the jokes like too subtle to pick out, or maybe like the references that like I'm just not. That are just like so dated that I know that they're jokes, even if I don't get them. Again, fucking Carry On movies can manage this. Like those are made on a shoestring budget with like actors who like, live with their parents. And even those, like, they know, they just like cram jokes in there. And this one, I'm like, I haven't heard anything approaching like a witticism in like half an hour. Who's writing this movie? What are they writing it for?
17 different people.
Yeah, right. Like, what are they trying to accomplish? And if this is a comedy, seriously, where are the goddamn jokes?
Yeah. And I'll say this. I did laugh at this movie more than I laughed at Skidoo from a few episodes back.
Well,
but keep in mind that I didn't laugh at Skidoo once.
Okay, yeah. So if you laughed at Casino Royale even once, better than Skidoo. I haven't watched Skidoo, and I have no plans to. So
it's trash.
So
like even if you were for some reason like an Otto Preminger completist, I'd be like, you know what, like you can skip that one. It's fine.
Right. Yeah, and part of what makes these scenes so frustrating is that it isn't clear like what the lead wants out of it. It isn't clear what the character wants.
Who is the lead?
Another great question.
Yeah.
Because we spend 45 minutes with like the legendary James Bond, like the legit James Bond, only for him to like be just kind of like set aside for Peter Sellers to then come in. And then Peter Sellers gets fired from the movie, and then the original, David Niven James Bond comes back in and saves the day. Where it's like, okay, do we cut out the first 45 minutes of the movie or the middle 45 minutes of the movie? Because we obviously don't need both.
I don't even know. Right. I'm just amazed that they had the brass balls to put this in theaters. And mind you, this movie was successful. It was actually one of the hits of 1967. Critics hated it because they correctly saw that it was a big pile of shit. But
it is.
People went for it, proving once again that audiences will watch anything, I guess.
Yeah. What the hell else was showing in theaters in 1967?
That's a good question.
Yeah. And it is an interesting time as well.
Right.
Because also, what else came out in 1967? you could infer that the spy genre might have become a little threadbare at the time, because James Bond movies have been out for what, like, better part of a decade, but it was the previous what, You Only Live Twice, which, speaking of things that haven't aged well, um,
Yeah.
that was Sean Connery's last, quote unquote last role as James Bond, and that was what,
Right.
like 2 years prior. But then in '67, I'm sure that Patrick McGowan as Danger Man had kind of been like, the spy stuff is played out. This is boring and repetitive and predictable, and it's all feeling the same way. You know, I'm gonna reinvigorate the spy genre with The Prisoner, which he did. Like, he reinvented it. Meanwhile, you have Peter Sellers and everyone else trying to do like a James Bond spoof that is just a mess.
And in a way, like Casino Royale, when you watch The Prisoner, you also have no idea what's going on, but in a cool way.
Right? Yeah, in an intentional way.
Right. Funny thing, because okay, 1967, Doctor No, the first Bond film,
Yeah.
which was a massive hit with Sean Connery and Ursula Andress,
Oh.
that came out in 62. So
Okay.
within 5 years,
Oh, wow, not even that long. Okay.
the spy genre was like, and it's like if you look at the big spy TV hit, Man
Yeah.
from U.N.C.L.E., personal favorite of mine.
Right.
After like a relatively serious first season, like by the third season, the show had just like curdled into like farce, kind of the way that the official James Bond series did in the 70s with Roger Moore, and a little
Yeah.
bit with Connery's return and Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah, it's like, we can't take this shit seriously. Come on.
Yeah, and it's a fair point. And I did find an essay about the movie that I think is probably the only, like, I mean, it's you read it and you're like, oh, come on, but then you're like, this is the only sensible read on this movie, and I will link it. This was a 2000 essay by Robert von Daskanowski, the film critic, called Casino Royale at 33, the postmodern epic in spite of itself. And it is a piece worth a read, because he identifies this particular Bond film as like, the kind of like the first like postmodern spy film, and then like makes a case for the movie as actually like really brilliantly like just poking holes in the whole like Bond thing. Like everything in it is just so absurd that it winds up being like a pretty good like puncturing of like
Yeah,
the
maybe
spy genre.
maybe you would have had to be there at the time, because the only point that I caught the movie doing something akin to that is when Bond shows up to his old office, and he kisses Moneypenny's daughter, and the assistant there is just makes the remark that secret agent is synonymous with sex maniac,
Right.
and that is like, oh, something relevant.
Yeah. And it's funny because the other Bond parody that comes to mind is the one that Alan Moore did in The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Black Dossier, where Bond is literally a rapist.
Right? Yeah, just a rapist alcoholic.
Right. And kind of an idiot too, which is funny.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is that, and Jen, you'd know more about this, being a baby spook that you are. But the thing is that in popular culture, like, James Bond has defined this idea of what a spy is, but James Bond is not a spy. James Bond is an asset. Like, there is
Explain.
well, I mean, as I've had explained to me by the by the spy who came in from the cold and then moved to Southern California, the asset is the one who does the work. The spy is the one directing them.
Ah.
So James Bond is the one who gets into trouble. Like, hey, I need you to get this thing because forces dictate that we need to do the thing, and we need to meet the people, and we need to persuade them to do the stuff. But the spy is not the one going out into the field. They're the ones moving behind the scenes. They're the incidental characters that are sitting on the other side of the bench, like looking away from you and doing a dead drop. And then you're the one doing the work. Like, that's the asset. And when James Bond gets killed, they get another guy and they say, okay, well, there are 6 other guys, so you're 007. And okay, yeah, you look like Timothy Dalton. No one really cares. It's fine. You're 007 now. But then he gets killed, and then he looks like Daniel Craig, and they say, okay, yeah, you're the 7th one, so your code name's going to be 007. You're like, how many other guys like this were there?
Which is sort of how the movie ends up, because if you hadn't like completely fallen into a coma by the end, everyone dies in a big explosion.
Right, yeah, and that's how they got George Lazenby.
That's right, because On Her Majesty's Secret Service came out the very next year.
Yeah, there you go.
And was quite good, as I recall. By the way, did you recognize that actress playing the Moneypenny Jr.?
No, I thought all of them were Ursula Andress.
That was Barbara Boucher, who was also the romantic interest, Ava Vestock, in Agent for Harm.
Oh. God. No, there's a worse secret agent.
Oh, yeah.
Let me smarm at you for a second.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, less happens in Agent for Harm than in Casino Royale. I'll give them that. But that's because Agent for Harm was basically made on, like, the Carry-On budget from the appearance of it.
Yeah, not an easy task.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, we got a bungalow near the beach. Like, can you just kind of shoot around that? Maybe drive your car to the airport?
Carry-On films, they were doing heroes work.
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't, like, keep lionizing them, because it's like, yeah, we get it. You like some body comedies from the 50s through the 70s, but...
Well, I don't know. Like, it's good to get at least a little bit of passion in here. Right?
Yeah. I'd like to get a little bit in there, all right?
Whoa! So, yeah, that brings us to, of course, also having mentioned Barbara Boucher, who is lovely, the women.
Right.
Let's talk about, Tim, would you say that this movie is full of holes?
Plot and character-wise, yes. Casting-wise, the movie's full of holes. What's I going to say? Yes, and also on the topic of Carry On, every time I say Carry On, I'm not mentioning Traveler, so you're welcome. No,
Tim's like, I don't want to talk about women. I want to talk about Carry On movies.
No, because how I mentioned Carry On's fun wordplay. There is one instance of that in this entire movie, and that is when they're training. Like, because there's a point where James Bond, he doesn't want to do it anymore. But what we need is a anti-female spy division. So he's just like franchises out the James Bond thing. And they find a guy to play James Bond, but the woman who's doing all the recruiting, like, she asks him what his name is, and he's like, oh, it's Cooper, Coop for short, and she's like,
I'm an artist who loves feet.
Oh God, why you got to say that? No, he says, and she says, oh, sounds like something for keeping birds. I'm like, oh, some actual wordplay. And so she says, how do you spell that? And he says, let me show you. So I'm like, okay, wow. Like, someone actually wrote this scene. Like, they wrote sexy double entendres. But that's it. Yeah. Like, you aren't going to get any more of that.
Well, I thought, in light of some of your comments in previous episodes, I thought you would have loved the part where this other James Bond has to choke slam a bunch of women in a dojo.
See,
I was like, it's a guy beating up women. Tim will love this.
Yeah, see,
throw her out a window.
Do you honestly like this? Yeah, because to say that, like, you could laugh like maybe 2 or 3 times in this entire movie, and I say you as like the average normal viewer, but yeah, I mean, when it is whatever their American stand-in for their James Bond franchise, and he's just like judo throwing hot women, I'm like, this is hilarious. Because it is the two of them just like tete-a-tete, and then it cuts to a wide shot and just slam.
Yep.
That is so inappropriate. I just find it delightfully hilarious.
Tim's a simple man.
Yes. They even work a surely you have another opponent for me. Hey, you don't look like Shirley. So surely you can't be serious. Yeah, but yeah, I just judo throwing. Uh, uh, we were speaking
Tim,
of
pull
belief.
yourself together.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that's just my kryptonite, and it really sucks that they they pulled that IT crowd episode of of Matt Berry fighting a trans
um, I have to
woman.
say that while I will admit to laughing 2 or 3 times during this
Yeah.
movie. At one point, in fact,
Linehan,
during
you
that
fucked it up
scene,
for the rest of us.
yeah, God.
Ugh.
I mean, look at the garbage pile he's turned his own life into. So
True, yeah.
you know, richly deserved.
Ugh.
What's wrong with him? Like I said, I did laugh 2 or 3 times during this movie, but in this particular case, with Coop flinging women around in the dojo, I was not laughing at that as much as I was laughing at me imagining Tim laughing at that scene.
I don't know.
So that isn't even the movie in a way.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, I'm delighted by what I think someone else watching this movie would look like, and maybe it's
Yeah, it's
I
a
don't know.
toughie.
Maybe it's just that like I don't feel like women get to do in a physical comedy, or maybe it's too like limited, so that when you see something like that, it's I don't know. It's a breath of fresh air.
And there have certainly been women who are very adept to physical comedians. It's just
Yeah.
that, like you said, there isn't as many opportunities for them to
Yeah.
do it. I mean, like on a superficial level, like most of the movie, it's like, oh, this has the veneer of like being cool and interesting, but there isn't a lot under the surface, and the women do have like shit to do. But in particular, Mata Bond, played by Joanna Pettit, but like to what end? It's like, oh, okay, go to West Berlin. Okay, you're in a weird German expressionist spy school.
Right,
Okay,
still
now
in
leave West Berlin.
Still in the Mata Hari outfit too.
Damn, she looked good as hell.
Well, there, she's found her purpose. This is all the movie knows to do with women.
I like her intro with the dance number. I realize it's culturally appropriative, but it looks kind of cool.
It's well choreographed. I mean, it calls to mind Temple of Doom.
Yeah, it does make you think of the opening of Temple of Doom, which is another
Yeah.
great scene involving white women appropriating Asian culture. But hey, when it works, right?
Are you not familiar with the 1930s, Jen?
Yeah, Joanna Pettit is really hot. Like, I wasn't familiar with her, but she's real sexy in this movie.
That's probably why she got cast in the movie.
Yeah.
It's a good trait to have, being incredibly hot.
See, what other holes have we got? Ursula Andress, of course, looking.
Yeah. I mean, most
fine.
of the women in this movie are just like stock characters, like you find in like the like Girl from Rio, where it's just like.
God, this movie really is like Girl from Rio or fucking Million Eyes of Sumeru, because
Right.
it really feels like there was a point where people just like punted and they're like, I don't know, like put spy stuff in there, like forget having like a setup and a plot and like a goal for the hero. Because like if you've ever watched Girl from Rio, that movie makes even less sense than this one, and that is saying a lot.
Right. Yeah. It's fashioned by Hugo Boss, armaments by Heckler and Koch,
Yeah,
or whatever.
some cool metallic Paco Rabanne uniforms. Like,
Yeah.
what else do you need?
I am of course a boy, so I don't know anything about fashion. So I only know the designer because he's brought up in World War II historical references.
What's up with Ursula Andress showing up for the first time dressed as a gay sultan?
Hey, someone's fetish. I don't know. What is up with that whole scene of Peter Sellers just being put into ridiculous costumes? Is it because Peter Sellers likes doing characters and fuck what the audience wants?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you played an Indian guy in the party. Like, let's dress you up like Hitler. Okay. Peter Sellers was Jewish, by the way.
Oh, okay. So you're saying he had a lot of good ideas. Mm-hmm. Okay. And of course, the only other scene that I can think of, the only other movie I can think of where they did a scene like that is, of course, Roller Gator. Do you think that that's what the director was like inspired by when he has the crocodile do his British impression and his Elvis impression? Is because it's like, or sorry, impersonations, because he saw Casino Royale.
I mean, like, I could see Donald G. Jackson legitimately thinking Casino Royale is really funny.
Right, yeah, because it's like, oh, this movie makes about as much sense as anything I've shot. The guy's definitely on my wavelength.
Yeah.
Just coming up with scenes at random.
It's like, oh, they didn't really have much of a script and they just like improv'd a lot of stuff. I'll do that.
All right, well, now I want to see Donald G. Jackson's Casino Royale.
I do not.
Well, okay, well, I want to know that it exists. I don't want to watch it.
I'll watch the riff tracks of it.
Okay.
It's got to be better than Baby Ghost.
Yeah, or how about the Easter puppy? That are...
No! I don't like that.
Yeah, fair enough. It was the movie that was shot on the same weekend as A Talking Cat.
Yeah, same house.
We're going to each lose money on this episode for all the MST references.
Casino Royale, starring Joe Estevez.
Mm.
Anyway, do you know what other bit actually got a laugh out of me?
Which one?
Not to... You do not, under any circumstances, have to hand it to Peter Sellers, but... No, he is legitimately funny. Like, he can, like, really make you laugh. And one part that did get me was when he goes to the weird training basement with Q and also a gay Q who wants to know, how do you dress, sir?
Yes.
They give him something to sign. And he picks up a pen to do it. And they're like, oh, I wouldn't use that one, sir. That's going to shoot, like, poison in your face if you use it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he starts to say, well, it should be effective if you want to write any... And they're just like, yeah, poison pen letter.
A poison pen letter, yeah. They all say that.
And just like the way, like the way he starts to say it, like he's like, oh God, I'm clever. And then the absolute, like, shade they throw his way, just being like, yeah, the poison pen letter. Yeah, we get it. We hear it all the time.
It's that same, like, kind of minor character that steals the scene, like the bald guy from Airplane. Speaking of Shirley, you can't be serious. The guy who's like, and Leon's getting larger. That guy.
Yeah.
It's like the same kind of energy from you got a poison pen letter. Yes, they all say that. The guy who's just like, he's done this a dozen times already and is sick of it.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I was like, okay, that's funny. I laughed.
Yeah. And I mean, to follow that, not to give the movie too much credit, the gay Q asks him, which direction do you dress? And Peter Sellers says, I usually dress away from the window. See, that's a joke. It's a joke. They put a joke in this movie. Good for them. Contrast with the earlier scene of him and Ursula Andress, where it is just finding ways to dress up Peter Sellers because, he can play more than one role, and good for him. Ursula Andress is, taking pictures of him. There's like a visual gag of him like as a shorter person, but then he's tall and the pants just don't cover his legs, and it's kind of a surprise, but it's not funny.
Toulouse-Lautrec.
Yeah, I don't care. Anyway, and she's got the camera out, and she says, I'm going to give you a 500 and an F2, which is half an entendre. That is just referencing photography terms. Like, it's not even like, I'd like to get you in front of my 210 millimeter. Whoa, hey, she's got a full frame,
Fwah.
Yeah. When I'm effing you, you won't say stop. All right, look, we're just spitballing here. Look, we need 9 more writers in this room to come up with a half a joke.
It's the only way to get this on the screen.
Yeah.
I'm like desperately scanning my notes to try to find like the stuff that I actually laughed at, and I'm coming up pretty short.
No, I think that's about it. Although there is one funny line read, because you know how like neither of us are particularly clever, but sometimes we can say things in a funny way. There is one instance of that, which is when I started thinking about what if this were recast with comedic actors, like from the Carry On movies. When Mata enters the like German expressionist segment of the movie, because it isn't important how she got there, and nothing that happens there is of later importance. But there's the woman there who's the detainer, who in my in a perfect world would be played by Hattie Jacques. She says, "What are your qualifications?" Hmm? And just like the way she says it, there's a part in Conker's Bad Fur Day where where you get some very posh catfish eaten by a shark, and yes, what are your qualifications? that sort of the line delivery itself is approaches funny, which is kind of it was jarring. It was very out of place. That I was like, oh, someone's actually trying to make this comedy funny.
Yeah, doing hero's work.
Yeah.
The movie that originally was vying for this particular slot was an earlier...
Yeah, a lot of those in this movie.
Mm-hmm. An earlier Charles K. Feldman produced movie called What's New Pussycat, which I thought we could do that on the show because I remember it being like really dumb.
Yeah, also critically unliked.
Critically savage, but again, like a huge hit, which is why Charles K. Feldman was like, hey, let's bring back Peter Sellers for another wacky adventure. And it worked out for him, except as it happened, Charles K. Feldman died the next year of pancreatic cancer. So can't take it with you. But anyway,
guess not.
I went back and rewatched What's New Pussycat, which I hadn't seen in literal years. I saw it on the big screen at the Cinematheque like a jillion years ago, had a very good time. But I remembered it being like, oh yeah, that's one of those like dumb like 60s sex comedies that's like kind of sexist, not that funny, and whatever.
It's more like whatever bold or like inappropriate than it is clever or entertaining.
Well, you say that, but I put the movie on because I think it's on Tubi. It's on.
Is it on Tubi or is it on not Tubi?
It's on Tubo or Pluti. I forget.
Okay.
It's
on Pluti.
I forget which streaming service it's on.
It's on Pissoir, but
it's on either Fuckler or Gunt, to steal a line from Felix Biederman.
Right. Please, only I steal jokes here.
So I put it on, and Peter Sellers shows up, like screaming at his large Wagnerian wife, and I start laughing, and I laugh consistently throughout the entire film. And I'm like, you know what? I wanted to use this movie for the show, but it's a little bit too good. It's not the greatest movie. It's not the most sophisticated comedy.
You must have been so disappointed.
It probably is arguably sexist. I don't know. Lots to unpack there, but it's fucking funny. It does.
What's wrong with being sexy?
It gives up toward the end, a lot like Casino Royale, because by the end, the entire cast is just on go-karts chasing each other around. It's like, they punted, but hey, whatever. I laughed.
We just need a big finish.
Peter Sellers playing like a German psychoanalyst with like a stupid wig. Funny as fuck. Like at the beginning when he's so pissed off at his wife, like, and that's another thing I really like in movies, is movies that are about like the prison of heterosexuality. So he's like screaming at his wife, who hates his guts and he hates her, and he just loses his temper so completely that when she leaves the room, he starts stomping on the floor and then throws himself down and is like, fucking like doing the curly walk in a circle, just going, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, and like pounding his fists on the floor. And then Peter O'Toole walks into his office because he has a fucking appointment with him, and I'm dying laughing. I'm like, why is this funny? It's so stupid, but it's funny.
Yeah, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like In What's New Pussycat, it works, and in Casino Royale, it doesn't.
You ever see The Party with Peter Sellers?
I saw Don's Party. That's different.
There's a bit in The Party with it involves like a roll of toilet paper that is maybe the hardest I've ever laughed in a movie.
Wow, amazing.
Like, and yes, Peter Sellers is in brown face during the entire movie, but
Okay.
hey, I also like Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh, with Peter O'Toole.
The Party, another film that I laugh at consistently all the way through because it has jokes that are set up and pay off.
Not as difficult as you might think. Like it's not so.
But apparently it is really difficult because you can have like 11 different people trying to contribute to the project and just end up with a big pile of what the fuck is this?
And I mean, speaking from experience, like, yeah, you can just plain not know what you're doing and not know how to write a joke, and like having enough writers to fit a short bus, like isn't gonna fix that if none of you are joke writers. Like it just can't be fixed. So they're just kind of like I don't know, just chasing their tails, spinning their wheels. Like if no one knows how to write a joke, then you're sunk. Like it doesn't matter how many writers you have.
There's a point at the end where everybody's fighting in the casino and a bunch of
we skipped over a couple of things, but anyway, go ahead. There's a part at the end.
Right. A bunch of cowboys and Indians show up because of course they do. It's the kind of ending which is done way, way better in Blazing Saddles because.
Well, yeah, it had to take 6 or 7 years to mature. That was, of course, what I immediately thought of.
Right, and then as soon as the cowboys and Indians show up, I was like, "Oh God, it's F Troop," and then I was like, "No, F Troop was funny."
Well, yeah, key difference. Did you notice? Because I didn't. Peter Sellers' character gets killed partway through the movie.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I was subjected to a psychedelic freakout because I guess that was de rigueur at the time, where I'm just like, look, guys, I don't care. Like, you need to have a movie that I'm engaged with. You can't just like throw colors at the screen and expect me to be entertained. Like, I'm not a baby. But
yeah, at that point, they were like, I don't know, let's try this. It's 1967. Fuck it.
yeah, right. Peter O'Toole shows up, which I'm like, that is me imagining Jen watching the movie. And just doing, DiCaprio pointing, just as you're thinking of me watching, beautiful women getting judo thrown, or judo flipped. But yeah, that scene goes on with all the Scotsman marching bands or whatever, and then
my sides are aching.
Yeah, and then one of the interchangeable blonde women shoots a machine gun disguised as bagpipes, and then there is a single frame that is just repeated, so that it is weirdly distracting because you're like, oh, this is a still, like this isn't a moving image. This is like they had just a frame and they used it to show this one concluding shot. I don't know what I'm supposed to look at. All I'm noticing is that it's a still frame. Apparently, she had gunned down Peter Sellers' James Bond in that scene, which I guess means he wasn't crucial to the story.
Yeah, and then the entire cast and crew just started cheering because he was off the picture. In real life, Sellers
liked that.
In real life, Sellers had fucked off to Sweden, trying to patch up his relationship with his then wife, Britt Eklund. It did not work out.
Britt Eklund seems like the kind of chick who doesn't take any shit.
Yeah, and and I think when she married Sellers, she was like maybe 21 or 22. He's lucky that she put up with him for as long as she did, because
right, yeah, wow. The guy just being neurotic and insecure.
Do you remember the I don't know why you would, but do you remember the young female lead from there's only really one woman in that movie, Phase 4?
Yes.
That's Lynn Frederick, and she was Peter Sellers' last wife.
Ah.
She was like 18.
A sucker born a sucker turns 18 every minute.
The thing about this movie is that it, and I think that's why I was so impressed by the Von Dostoevsky essay, which, like I said, I will link, is that I was like, wow, you actually managed to squeeze a critical reading out of this film, because I fucking can't.
If you must watch this movie, watch the last 5 minutes because that's where all the effort went.
I don't know.
It.
Maybe skip to Orson Welles' scenes.
Yeah, you could watch Orson Welles. Yeah, you could cut this movie down to like maybe an entertaining 10 minutes.
Watch What's New Pussycat instead, because it's actually funny.
You know what? Maybe, hell, watch Head. Watch Magical Mystery Tour, for fuck's sake.
Watch the fucking Pink Panther movies. People like those. Watch Shot in the Dark. That's got jokes.
Watch Bananas.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch Blazing Saddles. What else? Like, you need us to tell you that.
That spaceship looked like shit, by the way.
That movie should have ended. The movie should be over already.
Yeah, you wonder like why it's still going on. And then it's so funny when you're watching like the obvious model of the little tiny like flying saucer like on the water, like going up to the secret base. And I was just like, man, people had some stones to make fun of the special effects in kaiju movies of the time, because those look amazing.
Right.
And this looks like shit.
Yeah, there's just that huge like cacophonous fight scene at the end. Yeah, like the literal cavalry shows up. Like, Native Americans paratroop in. But like, because this is like all of the like all the forces from before, because it was the first James Bond who had been approached by like the CIA and the KGB and BBC. I don't know, whoever
William
to be
Holden,
like
Charles Boyer, and I can't remember the third guy.
Yeah, what else do I have to say? Yeah, they approach Bond and be like, hey, can you get rid of this Le Chef for us? And then they come in with the cavalry. But like, I don't know who any of these characters are, and I don't really care. I've seen it done better when, say, for example, Joe Don Baker shows up at the end of GoldenEye. Like, that's a delightful surprise.
He was in Living Daylights too.
Yeah, as a different character. So in the James Bond universe, there are two ringers. There are two like doppelgangers for Joe Don Baker.
Rest in peace, Joe Don.
Absolutely, he's earned it.
Yeah, he had a good long run too. But
yeah.
The whole reason that William Holden et al. Were in this movie is because Charles K. Feldman knew them. Probably having built up quite the little black book from his time as a super agent, basically.
Mm-hmm. A secret agent?
I don't have a joke. All the humor has been crushed out of my spirit.
Oh, that's perfect. You could be the 12th writer on Casino Royale.
Feldman started his career as like a super agent. He actually pioneered the practice of, outside the studio system, instead of signing actors to contracts, basically putting together packages of, like, here's a script, here's your lead actor, like, here's a director, and putting together these one-picture deals, which was not originally how they did it in Hollywood. But then he transitioned to producing and was actually, like, pretty successful at it, all things considered. Considering the output, like, astonishingly successful, looking at Casino Royale. But the reason you have, like, William Holden in the movie is because Feldman said to whoever the fuck was trying to work on the screenplay at the time, I got William Holden right apart for him. Okay. Like, George Raft is in the movie, flipping a coin. Why is George Raft there? He knew George Raft.
William Holden's coming over.
And the weird part about the Peter O'Toole bit is that I'm pretty sure it's a reference to a bit from What's New Pussycat, where Peter O'Toole is in a nightclub, and Richard Burton walks by. And they have like a little exchange where it's like, oh, they pretend to like know each other, not know each other. I forget. But in Casino Royale, Peter O'Toole shows up with bagpipes and asks Peter Sellers like if he's Richard Burton. Okay.
Yeah, if you'd seen What's New Pussycat, you would have found that hilarious, and you would have had your 10 friends go see it in the theater again. And that's why this movie made so much money, despite being garbage.
I wonder how many people had like a Tim at Wild Wild West type experience where they went to see Casino Royale and were like, this movie's hilarious. And then they brought a friend and the friend was like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I'm going to get you back for this. And in about 30 years, I'm going to make you watch Speed Racer at my place.
Just,
Yep.
Man, what a great movie. Casino Royale is not, though.
No. And also, like, spoiler alert, everyone dies at the end because Woody Allen's character blows up. In the opening titles, there's footage of them as angels. And I'm like,
Right.
aren't you kind of giving away the game here?
Yeah.
Whatever.
That is immediately after one of their leads has been picked up by a strange man in a public urinal.
Yes.
It just really sets the tone for the garbage that is about to
What
unfold
tone?
before you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that Orson Welles hates both Peter Sellers and Woody Allen.
Fair enough.
I mean, or hated, although I'm sure that transcends.
Orson Welles, not a stupid man. He knew what was what.
Yeah, he knows when people are full of shit.
By the way, were you calling him Le Chef because he's fat?
Is that what chef means?
Well, it's Le Chiffre.
I don't know. No, it's it's because I haven't heard anyone say it.
They say
It's
it a couple
Le Chiffre?
times in the movie. But
Oh, okay.
I assume you had dissociated by that point.
Yeah, I was not paying attention to the movie.
Yeah, this was a tough one. Like, it's over 2 hours. Like, I was having a real hard time not just playing games on my phone.
Yeah, like you could and should cut 45 minutes from this movie.
Yeah. Or just go over to Tubi and watch What's New Pussycat.
Or just watch anything for that matter. Watch anything else. That's our recommendation. Watch anything else. Watch whatever you like.
Watch your dog lick his own asshole. I know I do.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, you can show your support by going to patreon.com/haveyouseenthis and make a pledge at the $2 or $5 tier. $5 a month gets the latest episode before everyone else, plus access to our Discord, where we're always arguing about movies. If you'd like to give us a tip, our Ko-Fi link is in the show notes. We can't use any of this.